Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's start from the front lines review. We have the good news coming from the Pokrovsk. Yes, I say again, the good news. Ukraine started a small counterattack near Selidova and was able to repel the Russian offensive. Let's switch to the satellite map. So it was yesterday and it is today. The gray area moved back. Because they saw how Ukraine started the counteroffensive, it means that Ukraine brought some of their reserves to Selidova. By the way, 3 days ago, or maybe even 4 days ago, Russians reported that Selidova was taken by their forces under their control, so occupied. But in fact, no, they tried to occupy it, but it didn't work for them. And it's good news from the Pokrovsk direction, actually. And we have even some images from the ground of how Russians tried to block the way for Ukrainian armed forces. I can show you the limited amount of the information here. I'll post those videos fully on my Telegram channel. You may find it in the video description just below. Well, here Russia used at least 4 of the tanks and armored vehicles to block the way for Ukrainian offensive. On the top you may see the railroad, and here comes the tunnel. It's the crucial road which leads to the settlement. Yes, it's not the main one, but it was chosen by Ukraine for offensive action. So Russia decided to send fully working tanks to just leave them in this area like barricades. So there were at least 2 of the tanks and a couple of the BMPs left by Russians. Ekipazhtika, it's the comment from the Ukrainian video editor, and here you can see the T-72 tank left under this railway bridge for a purpose. Crew left the tank. Unfortunately for them actually, because later on the video shows that Ukraine sent some of the FPV drones to target the tanks, but instead they chased the infantry or the tank crew, it's better to say. So for them it was absolute suicide mission. Guys, again, I cannot show you that video fully on this platform. But the interesting thing that later on Ukraine went there with a T-64 tank, I guess, and was also able to trophy the Russian T-72 tank which Russia left there. So it is the worst mission for Russians actually, because first of all they lost the tank, they lost the infantry, and the passage through that bridge or tunnel or the road was unblocked fully by Ukraine. And later on Ukraine sent its own forces through the tunnel. That's how Ukraine was able to repel Russians from the part of the settlement. Again, we're speaking about Selidova settlement, and the railroad is kind of small. It's hard to find it on this map. Probably over here, I think that railroad goes to the local factory. So for the last couple of days, Russians were not able to get the ground in Pokrovsk direction. It seems like their attack was stopped by the time they decided to split this main vector into 2. They also decided to go southbound, taking village after village, but with that high pace, they expanded their supply lines. And they became very vulnerable for Ukrainian FPV drones and Ukrainian artillery. It cannot continue with such a pace for a very long time. If Russia had concentrated on just one vector, I believe that they would have been already in Pokrovsk. By attacking the southern villages, Russia wants to block Ukrainian forces in this part. But it could be even more hard mission for the Russian forces compared to Pokrovsk, because here Ukraine keeps the higher ground and definitely elevation there is significant. It's the perfect spot for defense, and yet Russians haven't been able to reach it. So for Russia it will take some time to regroup their forces and to apply new supply lines if they want to continue this double vector assault. And also we know that Ukraine sent some of the reinforcements to the region. Good news. Even with the Kursk operation, Ukraine has reserves. But I wouldn't be so optimistic about the case too. Russia has lots of the reserves. They have advantage over Ukraine in artillery, in armament, in everything basically. That's why I predict that they will continue their move towards Pokrovsk, and finally they'll occupy that settlement. Unfortunately, there is just a small probability that Ukraine may defend Pokrovsk. Hopefully that probability will work. But I think that without the major mistake of the Russian army in this region, Ukraine is not able to stop the Russian offensive towards Pokrovsk. But later on, Russia absolutely needs more reserves to continue their operation, to move to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast or to go northbound to encircle all those settlements. Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Konstantinivka. It's impossible for Russia to get those settlements in a straightforward attacks. That's why the only way for them is to go behind via Pokrovsk. Russia still has this goal to occupy Donetsk Oblast. Today Putin on his interview said about it. But really he doesn't need Donbass, he needs all of the Ukraine, and we also know about it from his own speeches. Alright guys, but we have other updates where Russia actually moved a little. For example, near Vuhledar we have the update, so yesterday and today. Now Zolota Niva village is in a grey zone, the fighting continues out there, and probably Russia will try to cross this small river. Plus they moved a little in Vodene for the last couple of days, so 2 days ago, and it is today very close to this village. It's the big threat for Vuhledar now, and Russia actually tried to advance toward the settlement today. Sorry, I need to use the other marker, like this one. And let me show you some of the drone picture of the Russian convoy. Yeah, I don't know if I should blur this image, probably yes. Well, those are the motorcycles, Russian motorcycles. So many of them went on a useless attack towards Vuhledar. No armor, nothing, and a couple of the FPV drones were able to stop this Russian assault. Well, I counted like 11 motorcycles and a car in a single spot. And here's the drone image showing those bikers on the run. But later on they sent some of the armored vehicles and tanks. All of this Russian assault was stopped. Guys, I cannot show you many of the images. Again, you may use my Telegram group for that, because there I share more information. There I'll post the video of how our guys just demolished the convoy. Also, it's been a while since I saw the Russian Tiger AMRAP vehicles. Basically the armored off-road vehicles similar to Humvees, and here you may see that at least 4 of them were stopped by Ukrainian defenders. It also happened in Vuhledar, so for a single day there were motorcycles, there were those vehicles, tanks, BMPs. Russia sends absolutely everything. They definitely want to get Vuhledar under control. It's really paying for their supply ass, let's say, because from Vuhledar Ukraine may strike the main Russian supply railroad, which connects eastern side of Ukraine, occupied territory I mean, and the southern part of Ukraine. Guys, if you like the job that I do on my YouTube channel, you may also consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for my Patreon is available in the video description just below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. About the Pokrovsk direction, we have the confirmation from the Ukrainian General Commander Syrsky. He said and confirmed that Russians were stopped, well, I guess for a while. Also, he said a couple of words about the Kursk operation and why Ukraine started that. Well, according to his statement, Russia was planning the attack on the Sumy region. Yes, we got this information well before, like 3 months ago, that after the attack on Kharkiv Oblast, Russia also was concentrating their forces near the Ukrainian Sumy region, but Russia did it in Belgorod Oblast, not in Kursk Oblast. And you saw then Ukraine started the attack on Kursk. There were just conscripts and TikTok battalion. There were no prepared positions, there was no regular Russian army, almost no. That's why Ukraine was so successful taking this vast part of the ground. So saying that Ukraine started this operation because Russia was apt to start their operation to attack Sumy Oblast, well, I think it's not true after all. Yes. You see, Zelensky said in his press conference like that before, so General Syrsky had just to repeat those words. From what I see, the real cause of this operation was to force the Russian army to send their reinforcements from the Ukrainian front lines, but it didn't work really. Well, they sent some of the reinforcements from the Kherson Oblast, but there is no active battle ongoing. Everything is now on the east, concentrated on the east, and there Russia sends more reinforcements, not in Kursk. In Kursk also, but not as much as in Pokrovsk direction, for example. It means that the Russian General Command is okay to lose the ground temporarily in the Kursk region, but to gain the success in Ukraine. But the other things worked actually for Ukraine in Kursk operation. Well, first of all, Ukraine created the buffer area, so definitely for Russia it will be hard to reach Sumy Oblast. Also, after all, Russia had to use some of their reserves to stop the Ukrainian army advancement. So they have to spend the budget on it, making their army in general weaker. Also, 200,000 Russians who were forced to leave their homes is not a good thing for the Russian regime, but after all, the rest of the Russia simply doesn't care. It's far away from Moscow, it's far away from St. Petersburg, we don't care, that's what usual Russians thing. They basically fed with the Russian propaganda, and on the Russian TV, the Kursk operation of the Ukrainian army is called a situation, difficult situation. So this hard period of time will just go on its own. Russians will not have to worry about it because you see, we have brave Ahmad soldiers who already stopped the Ukrainians. Well, not they just stopped the Ukrainian army advancement in Kursk, but they also has already won the special military operation. Wow. The statement comes from the commander of the Ahmad battalion, Ali Aldinov, who already on 9th of August, on the 3rd day after Ukrainian army went to the Kursk region, said, that Ukrainian forces were stopped and we should take popcorn and see how the brave Russian and Ahmad soldiers repel the enemy from Kursk region. Later on he repeated that statement many of the times, and now he says that Russia has already won the special military operation and the only thing we should do is to unite. Russians should unite, yes, especially with Ahmad. But in fact we see that Ukraine is out there. The special military operation is not won by the Russian army. Well, actually they have the foreign army on their land, which has occupied more than 1,200 kilometers of their territory. And they are now telling about the victory. What a funny guys. Ukraine continued to master the tactics of using the FPV drones. Here you can see the Russian Lancet drone, which was hit by the Ukrainian FPV drone. So the drone, Lancet, is kind of the stable target. It's not flying left, right, with abrupt maneuvers, no. But the main issue is to find this drone in the skies. Because of the relatively small size of the Lancet drone and also because they're made out of the composite materials, which are transparent to the radar waves, it's very hard to detect those. But here you may see the successful mission that our drone operators done. I hope that in the future we'll see more and more of those successful missions conducted. Because the Russian Lancet drone is the most effective tool which Russia uses against the Ukrainian vehicles. Well, also they have the guided aviation bombs, they have Iskanders, but for the gliding bomb they need aviation, for Iskanders they need surveillance drones, but the Lancet drone may be totally independent. It has a good camera, has a good range, and it could be launched from almost any spot. So definitely it's one of the biggest threats for Ukrainian armed forces. If we check statistics for the Ukrainian army losses, for sure there will be Lancets, which in this case hit the Ukrainian artillery system Gvazdika, D-20 artillery system, and Hotweiser unknown. By the way, we may see that Russians start to use the night vision FPV drones. Sorry guys about the quality of this image. I zoomed in, but the quality of the letters is not good. Here it's written night vision drone, which hit M777 artillery system during the night time. So at first that technology appeared in Ukraine, but now Russians copied it and use it, as you may see, effectively. One more Starlink actually was hit by night vision drone. And here is night vision drone. So Russia totally took this technology and use it a lot, even more than Lancets, because FPV drone is after all cheaper, even with night vision, compared to Lancet. Guys, let's go back to the front lines, because there is also update from New York and Toretsk direction. So it was yesterday and this today. Russians moved just a little, taking this road. You know guys, I was actually surprised and impressed that people, locals, they don't want to evacuate. In Toretsk alone there are 1,700 people left, and there is the battle ongoing. Russians captured the part of the Toretsk, and still there are so many civilians. The same goes for Pavlograd. Honestly, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't risk my life staying under occupation by Russia. Also, you are at the battlefield. Just recall the civilian losses in Mariupol. Here it could be the same. And later on, if you survive that, well, they may just torture you or simply eliminate. There are no laws in force, then you are at war. More news from the Kursk Oblast. Russia thinks to shut down the Kursk nuclear power plant. They're ready to do it, said the head of the Rosatom Corporation. But they may only try to do it if Ukrainian army goes closer to Kurchatov nuclear power plant. For now, there is no big advancement of Ukraine towards that side. Also, they mentioned that Ukraine already tried to attack the Kursk nuclear power plant, but wasn't able to do it in the right way, something like that. Alright, what else Putin say today on his conference? That Russian military stabilized the situation, again they call it situation, in the Kursk region and began to push Ukrainian forces out of the region. Well, I may say that they tried to do it, and definitely they slowed down the Ukrainian offensive almost to the standstill, but still I guess even 2 days ago Ukraine managed to get even more ground and 3 of the villages in the Kursk region, so it's early to say that the Ukrainian special military operation in Kursk was definitely stopped, and Russians absolutely do not push Ukrainian forces from the positions in Kursk. No, it's not happening. There are some of the comments from the Russian military that hospitals are overwhelmed and situation is bad. Situation in Kursk. Others say that he is talking nonsense. This is taken from the Russian media, from the Russian Z channels. So Russians in Kursk also have tremendous losses. It is one more reason for Ukraine actually to start this operation. After the voting in parliament, Romania officially announced the transfer of the Patriot system to Ukraine. Absolutely great news. Recently I get some of the questions about S16 that crashed somehow in the western side of Ukraine. I recorded a video about it, telling you more about the possible causes, and the main cause that I see right now is the friendly fire. Basically, the airplane could have been shot down by the Patriot system, as one of the Ukrainian MPs told. Some of the guys in the comments say that it's not possible, but no guys, it is possible. Patriot, the Western-made weaponry, may shut down the Western-made airplane. If it was the case, well, it could have happened because of the poor communication between the Air Force and Air Defense. Well, basically the Air Defense belongs to the Air Force, but again, there was miscommunication. If the variant with the friendly fire will be confirmed, and I tend to believe now in that version more than in any other one. I don't think that there was malfunction with the airplane itself, and the pilot error, well, even experienced pilots sometimes do mistakes, but in that case, I don't think that it was the case also. Well, maybe the investigation result finally will be published by some of the Western sources. From Ukraine, I do not expect to receive that information because it's classified. Also, great news are coming from Luhansk OB. Their Ukrainian artillery hit successfully the parking spot of the Russian T-80 tanks, together with refueling trucks. Russia lost many of the tanks and many of the other stuff. Again, fully you may check this video on my Telegram in the link below. Here maybe I can show you some of the screenshots with the Russian refueling trucks and tanks. The video was presented by some of the Russian subscribers. It's just a joke. But it comes from the Russian channels, that's why I subscribe for them as well. Alright, some political news, but those could be also important. You probably know that Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba was removed from his position. Well, here's the new Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha, and he's even worse than Kuleba. Why am I saying like that? Well, because there were some of the scandals between him and, for example, Polish side or Hungarian side. And also I read the articles from some of the independent Ukrainian media sources that he is the guy of Andriy Yermak, and I don't really like Andriy Yermak. It seems like Andriy Yermak controls the vast part of the government. He's like this great cardinal putting his men around in ministry, in parliament, and in most of the cases those people are damn corrupt. Well, it's just my opinion, but if you ask Ukrainians, well, mostly they do not support Yermak either. He became the symbol of behind-the-curtains game and corruption. Well, I may speak about the Ukrainian politics for hours because I know lots of this stuff, but I think that it's better not to make this video very, very long. The White House representative John Kirby during his conference said that there is no logic in giving the approval for Ukraine to use ATACMS missiles against the Russian military airfields because the most part of the Russian aviation, 90% of it, is located behind a 300-kilometer range of ATACMS. Just 10% of the Russian airplanes which could drop the gliding aviation bombs could potentially be targeted by ATACMS, and it doesn't worse the escalation. Well, I already said in one of my last videos that definitely that permission will not hurt the Russian aviation that much. Our allies failed to give this permission on time, then the most of the Russian aviation was on the airfields near Ukraine. But now Russia thinks about this possibility, that's why they removed the vast part of their aviation further away from the Ukrainian border, and obviously now the ATACMS permission would not be a big deal against the Russian aircraft. But still, after all, I think that Ukraine should have that tool. I mean, ATACMS permission, plus there are some of the good news, yes, that the United States will supply the cruise missiles with a range of 370 kilometers, which potentially could reach the Russian infrastructure even further from Ukrainian borders. Interesting, the last night Belarus shut down many of the Shahed drones which were spotted in Gomel Oblast of Belarus. Russia lost at least 6 of the drones. Belarus officially reported that they've shut down the drones, but they didn't specify the region where those drones were coming from, but there were 100% coming from the Russian side. We have the reports about it with the evidence. The Russian set bloggers also confirmed that Shaheds guided wrongly to the Belarus airspace. The Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said that the Russian red lines do exist. Don't joke about our red lines, because they exist and America knows about them, he says. But it's hard to guess what those red lines potentially could be, because what could be more red than attack of Ukraine towards the Kursk Oblast? Like open attack without even being masked for the Russian opposition forces or so on. Well, maybe there are some of the red lines for Putin's regime, but I don't see them from my own perspective. They're telling like that just to avoid the long-range weaponry to be supplied to Ukraine, for the Western politicians and the national security advisors to be scared about the Russian red lines, and unfortunately some of them are definitely scared. So after the Kursk situation, I would still joke about the Russian red lines. A chief of the International Atomic Agency, Grossi, attended the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant before he went in Russian Kursk. He inspected the Kurchatov nuclear power plant, saying that definitely there is the threat for it, and here he kisses and hugs, probably, yeah, just hugs with the local occupation administration. Just 3 weeks ago, Russia burned something in a cooling tower, and here the chief of the agency responsible for nuclear safety comes and hugs the occupiers. Well done. One more useless organization as United Nations and what else? International Criminal Court. Have you watched the movie American Sniper? I really like that one. The storytelling, I would say it's one of the best pictures directed by Clint Eastwood. On one side it's very patriotic, but on the other it shows the hard reality of the American serviceman. And here we see the American sniper, a real one, which actually a total opposition to the hero of the movie, because the hero of the movie is a patriot, and this guy is a fucking traitor. Daniel definitely served in the United States military as a sniper, and now he went to Russia to seek for a citizenship because he wants to help Russia in its war against Ukraine. He wants to train Russian troops and become the sniper instructor in the Russian army. He calls the war a special military operation, obviously. Mostly he obtained his combat experience in the Middle East. So my expression, a fucking traitor, is probably a softest term I may use to describe this individual. My fellow friends Americans, where did you get those scumbags from? It's crazy. Now my friends, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so you help me a lot. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.